Welcome everyone and good afternoon. My name is Michelle Lopez and I'm the Director of the Graduate Research School, and we're delighted to host the John Monash Scholarship Information Session today. I'm joined with Lauren from John Monash Foundation. We're very grateful also to have one of our own alumni join us today, Anish, who was awarded the inaugural 2025 Jeff Gallup John Monash Scholarship. Today, Lauren will provide an overview of the opportunities available under the prestigious scholarship, John Monash Scholarship, and Anish has also generously agreed to share his experience about navigating the application process and the interview process, etc. And so we're very grateful to have him at very early hours on his side of the world. It's 6 a.m. in the morning. So thank you, Anish, for joining us. Before I commence the session, I thought I want to start with the acknowledgement to country, please. In recognising Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's spiritual and cultural connection to country, and in continuing ACU's commitment to reconciliation, I would like to commence the session by acknowledging the First Peoples and traditional owners and custodians of the country where ACU campuses are located. We respectfully acknowledge our elders, past and present, and remember that they have passed on their wisdom to us in various ways. Let us hold this in trust as we work and serve our communities. And for the University prayer, God of all truth and goodness, bless us as we gather here at Australian Catholic University. May we be strengthened in mind and heart to pursue what you inspire with insight and deliberation, that our world may advance in true wisdom and justice for all, through Christ our Lord. Amen. And for a little bit of housekeeping before we commence, Lauren will be happy to take questions at the end of the session. You can also pop them into the chat, and we'll pick them up there as well. And without any further delay, I'll hand over to Lauren. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Hello, everybody. My name is Lauren Connolly and I'm the Scholarships Manager for the General Sir John Monash Foundation. Thank you to everyone who is here live with us, and hello to anyone who will be watching the recording, and my thanks for ACU's help in organising today's session. We will be recording the session and circulating it later if you'd like to refer back to these slides as well. So for today's session, we'll be covering the agenda on the screen, and just a note about me as well. So as Scholarships Manager, I oversee the selection process for these scholarships, and I also provide wellbeing support to the John Monash Scholars while they undertake their international study as well. Today we'll be going through a bit more information about the scholarship itself, what the benefits are, bit more about the selection process and my tips for applying, and we'll also be hearing from Anish as well, one of our 2025 John Monash Scholars and ACU alum. So I'll begin today with this quote from General Sir John Monash, who is the inspiration for our foundation. "The privilege of education carries great responsibilities. It is given not for individual benefit alone, but to befit persons for the higher duties of citizenship and for roles of leadership in all fields to make Australia great." This quote really frames the way we think about the scholarships and the way we work at the foundation as well. The General Sir John Monash Foundation was established over 20 years ago, and it's built on the philosophy of John Monash, that the high level of education that we strive to attain is there in order to contribute positively to the country. And the qualities of John Monash inspire our scholarship selection criteria, which I'll talk about a bit later on. Just to give you a sense of our purpose, I'll just play this short video for you all.
Australians, are you ready to advance? To advance technology, medicine, health and policy? Are you ready to lead in energy, in AI, in law, music or physics? Are you ready to shape global communities through service, innovation and excellence? For over 20 years, the John Monash Scholarship has backed Australia's next generation of leaders. Building on General Sir John Monash's legacy, We're creating a resilient, prosperous and socially cohesive Australia. From advancing eye surgery and reaching those most in need, to reforming laws for First Nations communities across the country, or deciphering our genes to solve life's biggest biological mysteries. Study overseas and become a change maker for the nation in any field, at any university, anywhere in the world, and build on the values of General Sir John Monash. Join us and play your part in advancing Australia.
Great. Okay, so hopefully that worked. That is a new video. It features a few of our scholars through live footage and pictures as well. So we're really proud of that one. So on to why you might consider applying for the John Monash Scholarship. So the great thing about it is it's open to applicants of any age, studying any discipline, and you can also choose to go anywhere in the world. We really encourage applicants to choose universities and programs that are world leading in the discipline area that they want to study in. John Monash scholars benefit from joining a professional and international network for career opportunities, and you'll also receive ongoing career support and professional development programs through our Leadership Academy. So if you receive a scholarship, you will get $100,000 each year for each year of study, up to a maximum of $300,000 over 3 years. And you can use that money to flexibly cover tuition fees, living expenses, and related study costs, plus travel support. You'll also receive an additional travel stipend, and that goes towards flights from wherever you are in the world to wherever you're going to be studying and back again. And the great thing is you'll also be joining a global network of over 280 scholars, and you'll get the opportunity to connect with them through our Leadership Academy. So what is the Leadership Academy? So the John Monash Foundation Leadership Academy is our development and support program that starts as soon as you become a John Monash Scholar. You'll be able to access exclusive events, collaborative grant opportunities with other scholars, as well as tailor-made professional development programs. The Academy is governed by an eminent advisory board with extensive leadership experience, and our patron is the Honourable Julia Gillard AC. I've included on this slide some of the examples of the events that you'd be invited to as a John Monash Scholar through our Leadership Academy. So every year in March, we hold our presentation ceremony for the new scholars. And earlier this year for the 2025 scholars, that was held at Government House in Canberra. The ceremony was hosted by the Patron-in-Chief of the General Sir John Monash Foundation, Her Excellency the Honourable Sam Mostyn AC, Governor-General of the Commonwealth of Australia. It's a very special ceremony and a really great event. And you can see in the top photo the 2025 scholars standing with the Governor-General at Government House. In the lead up to the ceremony itself, we also conduct 2 days of leadership training with a range of special guests to get our new scholars prepared to start their studies and launch into their career journey as well. On the right side of the screen, you'll see another key event for our Leadership Academy, which is our Scholar Symposium. We hold this every 2 years for the entire scholar cohort. The symposium is a chance for us to bring that scholar group together for networking, knowledge sharing, and we organise a range of interactive content and guest lecturers to motivate and inspire the scholars. So the next Scholar Symposium will be coming up at the end of this year, and if you are awarded a John Monash Scholarship this year for study in 2026, then you'll be invited to this event as well, and you'll get the chance to meet our growing community of incredible scholars. And I'll also mention as well that we will have a keynote speaker from our patron, Julia Gillard, which is very exciting as well. So if you are interested in applying for the scholarship, you will need to meet our minimum entry criteria, which is listed on this slide. You'll need to be an Australian citizen to be eligible for the scholarship. You'll need to have already completed, or at least will complete by the end of this year, an undergraduate degree from an Australian university. You'll also need to be planning to commence your postgraduate study at some point in 2026. Any programs that start this year would not be eligible for this upcoming round of scholarships. There's a bit of information on the slide here about programs that aren't eligible for funding, such as short courses or postdoctoral positions. And just a note there too that you would not be able to hold some other prestigious scholarships at the same time as a John Monash Scholarship, such as the Rhodes, Fulbright, or the Ramsay Scholarship. John Monash Scholars demonstrate excellence, outstanding leadership potential, and have a strong vision to build Australia's capabilities for the future, which are all based on those qualities modelled by General Sir John Monash. So to be successful in your application, you'll need to demonstrate excellence, and that could be through academic or professional examples, demonstrate leadership through different examples in different environments, and citizenship, which is how to plan to make a positive impact on and contribute to Australia and society more broadly. Importantly, you'll need to be able to argue the merits of your chosen course and university and how they're best positioned to drive progress in your field of study. So the great thing about the scholarship, which I mentioned earlier, is that you can study anywhere in the world. And as part of your application, you'll be asked to justify how the university and program that you choose is the best fit for your future career, that it advances progress in your field, and it will contribute to your area of study and positively impact Australia. So you can see some examples on that screen there where some of our scholars have chosen to study. And on the right side of the screen, we also have some partnerships with select international universities. So if you chose to complete your studies with one of those, you would be eligible for some additional bursaries and fee waivers on top of your scholarship as well. So it's very beneficial if you wanted to study there. So when you're considering what program you might like to choose, you should know how much funding you'd be eligible to receive. So we award 1, 2, or 3-year scholarships depending on the duration of your chosen program. So if your master's course duration was 1 year, you'd be eligible to receive a 1-year scholarship worth $100,000. If you chose to study a PhD program or a DPhil, you'd receive $100,000 each year for 3 years for a total value of $300,000. And that's the maximum value of the scholarship. So especially in that PhD space, study does sometimes last longer than 3 years. That doesn't mean the study's ineligible. It would just mean that after that scholarship stipend stops, you'd just be making sure that you can cover the remaining amounts that are required to continue studying. You don't need to apply for or have an offer from the university before submitting your scholarship application, but we do expect that you've done some research on the admissions process, the timeline, and your eligibility for that program as well. So this is a brief overview of the selection process for the rest of this year. So applications are currently open and they will be closing on the 30th of June at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. We usually receive around 350 applications during this window. And I do really recommend that you submit the application in advance of that deadline as well. So from there, we usually invite around 100 applicants to that first round of interviews, and we hold those around the country with a panel of guests from a range of disciplines. And those interviews will be held over several weeks in September. And after the first round of interviews is complete, around 40 candidates will be invited to progress to the national interviews, which are held in October in Sydney and Melbourne. And if you aren't in either of those cities, then we will fly you to those cities for your interview. And finally, each year between 14 and 20 applicants will be awarded a John Monash Scholarship, and notification of that comes around early December. So to apply for the scholarship, you do need to submit an application online, which you can do now. You can open it up and have a look at the questions. And so in addition to answering some of those questions about your journey and your background, you'll also need to prepare some external documents, which I've listed on the slide here. So your resume, official transcripts for any study, either completed study or any study that's still in progress. You'll need to request letters of recommendation from 3 referees, and they can be from academic, professional, or personal areas of your life. And you'll need to also complete a budget plan that just shows that how you'll be managing the scholarship stipend if you're successful. And there is a template for you in the application that you can use to fill out. The questions in the application form covers the themes of your professional experience, your knowledge of or experience with leadership, engagement or impact that you hope to have. You'll be asked about the university you've selected and the program you'd like to study, and your proposed future contribution to Australia as well. So I do always get asked about if there's any tips for the application. So I've included a few on the slide. I won't read them all out, but some of the key ones are when you're thinking about what program to choose, I really encourage you to be doing your research on the university and on the program itself. You'll want to be talking about why you've chosen that university or program. And I'd be encouraging you to look deeper than just rankings. Is there a benefit in studying this that would give you access to outstanding academics or research groups, equipment that isn't available to you in Australia, or is there, proximity to a location or something that's very important to your area of study? So it's really about rationalizing it in that way rather than just saying this program is the best in the world for X discipline. I'd also encourage you to choose your referees carefully. They should be senior people that can speak to your excellence and leadership capabilities, and I'd be encouraging you to select the most appropriate combination of academic, professional, and personal based on your current career stage. I don't recommend, though, just submitting only personal references. But that being said, when you are thinking about it, the referee should still know you. If they have to read your resume to be reminded of who you are to provide the reference, it's maybe not the best choice. But just have a think about that. And I might ask Anish to reflect on that when we get to the questions in a little bit. And finally, I could not stress enough how important it is to allow plenty of time to prepare and submit the application. Take note of the deadline, ensure your referees are prepared and can do their part on time as well, just because we can't accept late applications. So here are some of the upcoming dates that you should be aware of for this current scholarship round that's now open. So yes, as I mentioned earlier, you can go in and start an application today if you want, or you could just open one up to have a look at what the questions are like. And we also run in-house webinars at the foundation as well. Our first one was earlier this month, and the recording of that is available on our website. But our next live webinar is in the first week of June, which is an opportunity to ask questions about the application and the scholarship itself to some of our scholars. So if you'd like to attend, you can just scan that QR code on the screen and submit your details to register for the event, and we'll send you an invitation. And then finally, just noting that application deadline of the 30th of June. All right, so now I'd like to introduce one of our John Monash scholars, Anish. Anish was awarded a John Monash Scholarship in 2025 and will use the scholarship to study a Master's in Comparative Education at University College London, which will start later this year. So Anish, welcome. Could I get you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your educational and professional journey that led you to submitting an application for the scholarship last year?
Absolutely. Thank you, Lauren, for all the introductions and for all the context as well. And good morning, sorry, good afternoon to everyone over in Melbourne. I'm very excited to join you and just share some of my reflections on kind of my pathway and my decision to pursue the scholarship last year. As you can see with a bit of the information on the slide. I've had a very, I guess, non-linear pathway. And I wanted to emphasize that because I think it's really important to acknowledge that the foundation and the scholarship more broadly looks for like a very diverse range of people from different backgrounds with different areas of interest and prior education. So it's just really important that if you're considering applying, that you put an application forward. It's very common for people to self-select out of programs like these because they are so prestigious. But I think if you put your name forward, there's really nothing that you have to lose from doing so. I'm going to London to study a master's in comparative education. A lot of this is framed by my experiences studying at ACU when I did the Masters of Teaching there, because that kind of set me on the path for pursuing a profession or a career in education, which until that point I hadn't really considered. My intention is to learn about different systems um, and approaches to education, particularly in terms of attracting and retention of teachers, which is an increasing challenge in Australia with a policy lens around that, particularly around diverse and high achieving teachers and what we can do to improve that in Australia. And I'm hoping to go to London, learn about that from some of the experts in the UK and also in Europe, which is why I've chosen a comparative education master's because it kind of enables looking at a whole range of different systems and countries and then bring that information back to Australia to enact some positive change through the not-for-profit spaces where I'm hoping to make that change because that's where I've kind of got more background and more experience in change making. In terms of my reflections about the application, I'm happy to take some questions a little bit later as well, if they come up through the chat or on the call, or for those of you who are watching at a later date. It's a rigorous application and it encourages you to be really reflective about yourself, your values, your priorities, your achievements, and your desire for impact. And in doing so, you just need a lot. I think you need a lot of time to just think about yourself and think about what you've done. It's a good opportunity to just stop and reflect wherever you are in your professional or academic careers. And to that extent, it's quite a valuable and a really unique process, very different from what you might have to do if you're applying for a particular job, whether it's a graduate job or a job a bit further down the career trajectory. So I would absolutely recommend applying, even just going up to the application portal, looking at the questions, getting a sense of what they're looking for, and developing a really coherent narrative arc about yourself, I think is really important in an application like this. But it's a really great opportunity. If you're successful, it's still a great opportunity to apply. So I would absolutely recommend it. Yeah, that's kind of just my story broadly. Happy to take any questions if they come up, or if Carolyn, Michelle, if you have any questions you want to take the conversation in, I'm happy to follow your lead as well. But yeah, pleasure to meet you all, and thank you for joining as well.
Thanks, Anish. I might ask a couple of my own, if that's okay. And then if anyone wanted to post a question in the chat, I can ask them of Anish on your behalf as well. For now, if it's okay, I'd just like to know if there was something in particular that motivated you to apply for the scholarship last year.
Yeah, for me specifically, it was a couple of years ago. I was in Scotland, where I am right now, where I was catching up with a very good friend whose partner was a lecturer at Glasgow University. And it'd been a couple of years at that point that I'd been out of university and having some really insightful, interesting conversations about what life is like at a university where you spend so much time learning, but not just learning from your lecturers, for example, but also learning from your students. And that's something that really resonated with me being in a classroom as a teacher, that I probably learn a lot more from my students than they learn from me. And it really goes down to like a really deep passion that I have about a couple of issues, but as a medium, learning, I just value education a lot and learning a lot. That kind of spurred me on to realize that I have like and part of it's kind of my teaching degree at ACU, which was done with Teach for Australia. So there was a big emphasis on learning through doing and learning through action, and this continuous reflective process, both in an academic sense, but also in a personal sense. All that kind of led me to was the desire to continue that journey of learning. I felt like I was at that point in my career where I'd been working for about 7, 8 years, which is still very early career in a teaching context, but had this desire to expand my knowledge base, particularly on a policy issue that allowed me to look at different systems in different countries, and then come back and bring that knowledge back because I felt like I would getting close to hitting a bit of somewhat of a ceiling in my professional career in a school context, and I wanted to expand that and be able to make a broader impact at a system level as well. So considering some different options of future study, it's really hard to pursue, particularly in education, kind of ambition without looking at overseas universities, particularly UCL, which is very well renowned for its Institute of Education, because of its international focus, because of its high caliber of professors, because of its big emphasis on really meaningful international research as well. So a couple of things led me to that, and then a few more things led me to seeing that the John Monash Scholarship was such a fantastic opportunity to realize that ambition. I've been fortunate enough that there've been a few alumni from the Teach for Australia program who have gone through the scholarship process as well. So there was a bit of a role model effect there that I could see people who'd gone down this pathway and made it a little bit easier to step through and follow in their footsteps as well. So that kind of all the reasoning that led me to end up specifically at UCL, specifically with the John Monash Scholarship, but ultimately it was a desire to learn more, bring that knowledge, and come back to Australia and make an impact, or continue to make an impact as well.
Need to unmute myself, but that was a great response, Anish. I talked a little bit earlier about the themes of selection, which are similar in some ways to other prestigious scholarships. So if you are considering, going down any of these paths, of which there are many, there are things you'll need to think about. But with the John Monash themes of leadership, citizenship, and excellence, I was curious, how did you talk about those things in your application?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and one that a lot of prospective applicants grapple with, in that they're very broad themes and they're very abstract themes. So grounding it in an application is a really challenging task. So in terms of those particular ideals that are, I mean, very much kind of an embodiment of the spirit of John Monash himself, I think there's a big emphasis in an application around grounding what those activities, also what those principles or values look like in your life. And ultimately, if you're someone who is value aligned with the foundation, value aligned with the legacy of John Monash, those kind of themes should emerge really naturally in your application. So, for example, if you're talking about leadership, I think there are a number of different ways in which people conceptualize leadership. You'll have an opportunity to reflect on what your understanding of leadership is in both the application, but also in the interview stage if you get to it. And in doing so, portraying or kind of conceptualizing leadership in a way to you that ultimately aligns with the foundation's conceptualization of leadership is probably going to be the most effective thing for you. Like if you've got an understanding of leadership that it's about driving leadership in others, if you've got an understanding of a leadership that's around empowering other people and using it as a way to support and advocate for marginalized communities, that's a really like value aligned understanding of leadership. And really it comes down to how you're able to demonstrate that you have the characteristics or qualities of leadership in your past actions, whether it's, again, through a diverse means. It could be in a professional context, it could be in a community involvement context, it could be whether it's from clubs at university that you've been involved with and not-for-profit organizations, how you've demonstrated those characteristics in the past, and then also very importantly, how you would project that as well. Like what would you anticipate doing when you return to Australia that aligns with those values, whether it's leadership or community impact or excellence as well. Again, wanting to emphasize that can look like a lot of different things for a lot of different people. There's no particular mold of a John Monash scholar. They're all very unique and very different. I think that's one of the strengths of the program, that we all come from very different backgrounds as well, but just really emphasizing that there is no right or wrong way to demonstrate some of those skills and attributes. It's really about what's authentic to you and what's genuine to you. And if those things align with the foundation, then you're probably a better fit or match for the program. And there's, I mean, again, as Lauren mentioned, there's a lot of other scholarships out there that promote very different ideals and very different values and have very different options in terms of courses of study. For me, the John Monash Scholarship was the most value aligned. Like I felt like it aligned with my desire to make a community impact through leadership at a system level. But it also offered a lot of flexibility that also like really aligned with my intention. So that's kind of why I made a value decision to pursue this scholarship in particular.
Great, Anish. And just to touch on citizenship a bit more, because I think it's a question I receive a lot from applicants about, well, I want to study this program, but I'm struggling to make the link between wanting to study that and citizenship and impact. And so maybe you could talk to us a bit about that sort of impact piece and the impact that you're hoping to have, you know, in the short term, long term, and how you're hoping that this study at UCL will get you to that place as well.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, citizenship or service as well is another way of framing it is such an important part of, I guess, any career or any discipline. And I think, I mean, from a humanities background, it's a little bit easier to conceptualize impact in a community way or citizenship because so much of the work that we do in the humanities is so people focused. But if I was to offer an example from someone from a science background, from one of the other scholars who might be researching like a very particular scientific discovery around like astrophysics, for example, from some conversations I've had with scholars, it extends beyond the innovation in itself or the discovery in itself and lends itself more towards how they anticipate using that for the good of society. Or for the benefit of people, or for the benefit of a particular marginalized community within Australia. And I think that's the distinction between just going out there and being an excellent or very bright person compared to being someone who's very community minded or has a strong sense of citizenship. So I think that the citizenship element is really about how you plan to make an impact on people, particularly in Australia. And thinking about what I'm hoping to do is come back to Australia from my program and really, I mean, I mentioned this a little bit briefly, but focusing on what we can do to attract and retain high achieving young people, particularly from diverse backgrounds in education. From my perspective, kind of in education for the last 7 years and beyond that as well in the not-for-profit space, I've observed, and this is kind of largely consistent with some of the discourse in the media around Australia's education profile, is that we're increasingly struggling to attract people into the profession. We're facing a lot of burnout from young early career teachers and really experienced career teachers, and that's causing a bit of a teacher shortage that needs to be addressed, particularly in disadvantaged communities. For me, a big gap in that is the struggles we're facing with experiencing with attracting high impact teachers and particularly high achieving teachers in whatever way you seek to define that, and the kind of the cultural stigma or the social stigma that a lot of people face when trying to enter a profession like teaching, whether it's not considered prestigious enough or it's not considered impactful enough, and that's a particular barrier for high achieving people. My desire is to be able to come back to Australia and create some, either at a policy level or a not-for-profit level, systems that enable a changing social perception around teaching. And for me, a big platform around that is storytelling and the impact that can have on diverse communities and their perceptions of teaching. To creating support networks for early career teachers, particularly from diverse backgrounds, to minimize the amount of burnout and exit for the profession, but also to promote teaching as an inclusive profession, particularly for those communities who may not see role models in the profession that acts as a barrier to them entering in. And I think for me, thirdly, beyond the changing of the stigma and beyond the support and networking for early career teachers, it's about promoting diversity in the system as well. So much of the research highlights the disproportionate impact of education disadvantage on minority communities, and particularly in that frame, we're seeing less and less people from those minority communities become teachers as well. And when you see a lack of role modeling for some of those communities, it makes a really big impact on their ambitions or aspirations. And I'm hoping to address elements of that as well, again, through some of the mechanisms I've highlighted before. So yeah, citizenship and service can mean a lot of different things in a lot of different professions. So again, reflecting on what your career looks like or your particular passion is, and then thinking about how you might make an impact is a really powerful way to think about it.
Great, thank you. And just let's fast forward a little bit beyond the application and the next phase is interviews. And I was just wondering, what are your memories of your interview experiences? Because you had two.
Yep.
And I don't know if you're a person that blacks out and are nervous in interview situations, but I don't think you are that person.
No, I think I mean it really do. Everyone has a very unique relationship with interviews. Some people really enjoy them. Some people find them really intimidating. I find myself in that former camp where I just enjoy them, and I kind of just see them as a really like a conversation with people around a table. And it's really interesting because I mean these interviews were unlike any that I've experienced in the past, in that the foundation kind of assembles this panel of like very, very accomplished, respected, eminent Australians in a variety of fields, and brings them together in a room for 30 minutes to talk to you about things that you care about. And I think that's such a fantastic privilege to have that platform to talk about issues that you care about. And it really, and it puts pressure on you to really like have some good opinions and some good ways of expressing those opinions about those issues, because they really test and challenge and try to validate some of those ideas. So, I mean, my advice for interviews, I mean, I'm cautious about offering advice about interviews, because I think it really just depends on what your kind of starting point is. If you're the kind of person who really likes preparing for interviews and going into them with like as much knowledge under your belt, don't be afraid to go in with information or notes from your application that you would rely on or lean on during your interview. I think that's a really helpful thing that sometimes people feel like they need permission to do. So take this as that permission, just like go in with your application, even if you have your application printed out with you, like that's not cheating. It's just having like your notes there, like you've produced that work. Use it to as you need. And you might find that you don't actually need it, but if there's like a statistic you want to use, or there's a particular example you want to use, you know you've got that on you. It's just more of a safety blanket. And then on the other side, I think if you're the kind of person who goes into it feeling like it is a conversation or feeling really relaxed about interviews, like some strategies that I find really helpful is just having some paper and a pen to write down things during the interview. I find that writing for me helps consolidate things and consolidate information, and helps me verbalize it a little bit more clearly. Don't be afraid to ask for a bit of time in an interview if you need to. Often, and the feedback I've often got from panels in a range of different contexts, particularly professional ones, is that they don't see people writing down questions or notes or answers, and they don't see people taking time during interviews. And I think that adrenaline rush can often just force people to just bulldoze their way through an interview rather than taking it step by step. And the last thing is about strategies to self-regulate. And I offer this advice to my students as well, in that when you're in an interview, your adrenaline is really pumping. Your heart rate is higher. You'll notice some physiological things. You might be blushing. Your internal temperature will be a bit higher. Like those kind of things are very natural. It happens to a lot of people. And I guess the extent to which it happens to determines if you're the kind of excited about interviews or nervous about interviews. It's all very natural. It's very physiological. So in the same way that you would think of other strategies to regulate in some of those moments, it might be a breathing activity. Some people find that if they what was it I learned the other day? Oh yeah, if you like put your tongue on the top of your mouth, like that helps you self-regulate. If you just focus on like one thing in the room, just as a moment of mindfulness, it can help you self-regulate as well. So doing those things can really calm you in an interview. I mean, it'll take you some time to work out what is effective for you and what isn't. But I would encourage you to just consider that as well. You might want to do like practice interviews, but it just really depends on you. Like I hate them. Some people swear by them. it's again, as I said, it's a self-reflective process. It's about knowing what works for you and how your brain works. And I think the more practice you have with that, the more useful it's going to be for you long term as well.
Yeah, I agree, Nish. And just so anyone on the call knows too, the interview is not meant to be a gotcha experience. We send you all the information in advance. We tell you who your panelists are 2 weeks before the interview. So you can do as much or as little research or preparation as you'd like before you walk into the room. And something I always get asked a lot about, and I'd be interested in your input as well, is about referees and who to choose. So I was just curious, who were your referees in your application and why did you choose them?
Yeah, so three referees for the application, and yet you can choose a mix of professional, academic, or personal. I would say a balanced approach would be good, and like you have a mix of different ones. So I had kind of two professional and one kind of semi-academic. But because it's been a couple of years since I've been at university, it was tricky to have um, academic references. So I kind of leaned a little bit more towards professional. So just keep that in mind. If you haven't as much professional experience, you might have more academic references. For me, references are such an important part of your kind of narrative building as part of your application. They really present an insight into who you are as a person, what you value, and what your potential for impact is. And really, like I would encourage you to reach out to a reference, like probably like now, because we've only got 6 weeks left of the application process. If you haven't already done so, ask to catch up with them, especially if you haven't seen them for a while. Like it's important to have that face to face or like a Zoom call if you're not in the same geographical area, conversation with them around here's what the foundation is, here's what the scholarship is, here's what I'm hoping to do, what I'm seeking to do when I come back. Having those really open conversations means that your reference is likely to have a really, I guess, holistic understanding of what the program is and how you seek to fit yourself into it. As part of that, I think that making sure that you have a really open conversation with your reference, that you're kind of getting a reference from someone who you feel like you can have an open conversation with, where you could challenge each other's ideas and contest them, means that you're going to have a more enriched reference. It's definitely not the kind of reference where you can just email someone the week before and say, "Can you please write some nice words about me?" Because I think the panel will see through it, but also because it won't necessarily help your application either. Um, so yeah, think about who you're going to approach. Think about your relationship with them, and how open and honest you think you can be with them and they could be with you, and have that kind of two-way dialogue as they're developing that reference. They'll have a lot of questions for you, hopefully, about what you'd like them to focus on, and particular examples you'd like them to include. And I think the more you've considered, the more you've reflected on it, I think the more coherent the references will be for you.
Um, just one final question from me. You're obviously in a phase now where you're gearing up to start your study later this year. So I'd just like to hear, what are you looking forward to when you start?
Um, that is a great question. Definitely not the weather in London. That's one thing I'm not looking forward to.
September might be still nice though, right?
Yeah, yeah, it might be a bit of sun, potentially. Definitely rain. I mean, at least compared to Perth, it's going to be
Hmm.
much, yeah, rainier and colder. But no, what I'm looking forward to is, and what I've really enjoyed about the process so far is meeting people. Meeting the scholars has been such a transformational experience, to be in a room with 17 other like passionate, like-minded, and really just like bright people about things that I know nothing about, and learning from them has been really fantastic. I've learned yeah, so much. Yeah, about a variety of things. So that's one thing I've been really excited about, and that kind of projects into what I'm really excited or looking forward to, which is going to UCL and London, because it seems like a fantastic community of people within the course that I'm seeking to do, about people who are really passionate about education, come from really different backgrounds, and learning from them about what happens in their systems or in their countries. I'm really fascinated about. But also, as part of the John Monash family, there's a group of us who are going to London together and studying at some of the London universities who are very close to each other. Some of us staying in the same accommodation, so that's going to be a really fantastic way to get to know them really better. But also the I think London is one of the biggest centers of communities of John Monash scholars and alumni in the world, apart from potentially Oxford, Cambridge, and then the northeast of the US. So being a part of that community, I'm also really excited about. We have like a big WhatsApp group chat community where there's just a lot of conversations going, some really interesting conversations of people from very, very different backgrounds. So I'm excited to be a part of that in kind of like in the real space rather than the virtual space. So people, I think, is the foundation of any community or organization. And that's definitely true for the John Monash community, where the scholars like make that experience what it is.
Great, thank you, Anisha. Well, I don't think we've received any additional questions, so I might just thank you, and we'll wrap up the presentation. But great responses, thank you. That's really helpful. Okay, so that sort of brings us to the end of this session now. I'm happy to take still any questions now for myself or for Anish, but otherwise, if you'd like to just have a think, there's contact details on the screen as well. Send us an email and I'll probably get back to you within the hour. And just a reminder for that QR code as well, that if you'd like to stay in the loop, get application reminders and get invitations to the next webinar, just register your details on that form as well. So without if there's no other questions, I'm happy to end things there.
Thank you so much, Lauren. And look, thank you to everyone for attending, and thank you to both you and Anish for your invaluable insights. Anish, we look forward to hearing about your experience and your journey when you return. We're so excited for you and delighted. We're very grateful to the Sir John Monash Foundation for providing such opportunities to the scholars. And it's such an exciting and wonderful journey that you're going to be embarking on. And we're really, looking forward to hearing more about what the future holds for you, and of course welcoming you back to Australia, and the impact that will be clear once you get back. Lauren, your guidance with the application process, the information you provided was invaluable. Thank you for support and providing organising the session for us, and for your time. We really appreciate it. We will circulate the recording in due course. So again, thank you everyone for attending, and thank you so much to Lauren and Anish for your time today. We're very grateful.